when humanity tried to reach heaven, and God responded. After the devastating flood that wiped out nearly all life on earth, humanity found a second chance through the family of Noah. God, in his mercy, had spared Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives, tasking them with the responsibility of repopulating and stewarding the earth. As time passed, Noah's descendants multiplied and spread across the land, giving birth to new generations and forming the early roots of human civilization. In the generations that followed, people began to settle together, speaking one common language and sharing one culture. There was harmony, efficiency, and a sense of unity. With no language barriers and a growing population, the people were able to collaborate easily, creating thriving communities. Their progress, however, soon gave way to pride. Instead of living in gratitude and reverence toward God, they began to put their trust in themselves, forgetting the divine power that had preserved their ancestors. It was in this context, amid peace, growth, and human achievement, that a bold idea began to take shape. United by a single tongue and driven by ambition, the people devised a plan that would not only test their capabilities, but also their relationship with God. They would build a city, and in its center, a tower that would reach the heavens. It would be a monument to their strength, their name, and their independence. What started as a vision of unity quickly transformed into a symbol of human arrogance. The stage was set for one of the Bible's most profound lessons on pride, disobedience, and divine authority. The story of the Tower of Babel was about to unfold. As the descendants of Noah continued to live together in the land of Shinar, a new sense of ambition began to take root among them. With a shared language and growing technological skills, they discovered how to make bricks and use tar for mortar-early innovations in construction that gave them confidence in their abilities. Inspired by their unity and driven by pride, the people began to dream of something far greater than ordinary cities or homes. "Come, let us build ourselves a city," they said, "with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth." Genesis 11:4. At first glance, their desire might seem harmless, a symbol of cooperation and progress. But at its core, this project was rooted in pride and rebellion. Rather than honoring God or fulfilling his command to fill the earth, Genesis 9:1, they sought to centralize power, glorify themselves, and protect their legacy through human achievement. The tower was not just a structure, it was a monument to their ego. This ambition reflected a growing desire for independence from God. The phrase, "make a name for ourselves," revealed their true intentions. They wanted greatness without God. They feared being forgotten, being dispersed, or losing their collective identity. So they chose to build upward, toward the heavens, attempting to elevate themselves spiritually and socially on their own terms. What they failed to realize was that unity without obedience to God leads to destruction, not progress. Their tower represented more than a construction project. It symbolized the illusion of human self-sufficiency. They believed that together they could reach the heights of the divine without God's blessing, guidance, or presence. And so, brick by brick, their pride rose into the sky. But as the tower grew taller, so did the distance between their hearts and the God who had once saved their ancestors. They were building more than a city, they were building a challenge to divine authority, and heaven was watching. As the tower rose higher into the sky, it became a symbol not of progress, but of defiance. The people, unified in speech and purpose, pressed forward with unwavering determination. But while they celebrated their achievements and gloried in their strength, they failed to see that their actions were drifting further from the will of God. From heaven, God observed the growing arrogance of humanity. Though their technological ability and cooperation were impressive, their motivation was corrupt. They were not building to honor their Creator, but to elevate themselves above His authority. Their unity, though powerful, had become a tool for rebellion. God, in His wisdom and justice, knew that if this pride was left unchecked, it would only lead to greater sin and destruction. In Genesis 11:6, God says, "If as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them." This statement was not a celebration of human potential, but a warning about the dangers of ambition without righteousness. United in their defiance, the people were paving a path toward chaos, to halt their rebellion and restore His purpose for humanity. God intervened not with violence or destruction, but with a simple yet profound act. He confused their language. In an instant, the people could no longer understand one another. Words became meaningless. Commands were misheard. Cooperation dissolved into confusion. What once was a smooth, synchronized effort became utter chaos. The workers, now speaking in different tongues, could no longer continue the construction. Frustration turned to fear. Misunderstandings led to disorder. The very unity that had made them strong was now shattered. This divine disruption served two purposes. First, it humbled the people, reminding them that true power and order come only through God, not apart from Him. Second, it fulfilled God's original command to fill the earth, as the people unable to continue together were scattered across the land. The construction of the tower was abandoned. The city, once a beacon of human pride, stood unfinished, and the people, once united in defiance, were now dispersed in diversity. The dream of reaching heaven through human effort had collapsed, and in its place stood a lesson that would echo through history. Human pride always leads to confusion without God. With their language confused and their plans shattered, the people abandoned the tower they had once hoped would reach the heavens. What had begun as a proud monument to human greatness became a broken project, an eternal reminder of what happens when humanity seeks glory apart from God. Unable to understand one another, the people naturally grouped themselves by shared speech. Those who could still communicate formed separate communities, which then began to migrate in different directions across the earth. From this scattering came the formation of new tribes, cultures, and eventually, nations. The shared ambition that once unified them had given way to a diverse world of languages and customs. The unfinished city was named Babel, a word that would become synonymous with confusion. In Hebrew, Babel is closely related to the word Balal, meaning to confuse. It stood as a geographic and symbolic mark of God's intervention. While the people had aimed to build upward toward heaven, it was heaven that had come down, changed everything. But this scattering was not merely a punishment. It was also a redirection. By dispersing humanity, God was accomplishing His original command to fill the earth and subdue it. Genesis 9:21. In His sovereignty, God transformed a rebellious act into a moment that would shape human history. The diversity of languages, which at first seemed like a curse, became a part of God's greater design for the world. From Babel onward, the earth was filled with people of different languages, customs, and nations. Though divided in speech, they remained united by origin, descendants of Noah, children of Adam, and creations of God. The story of Babel became a foundational explanation for the diversity of humanity and a lesson on how pride leads to division, while obedience to God leads to purpose. This moment in history also laid the groundwork for a future reconciliation. Though languages were divided at Babel, the Bible later promises unity through the Spirit of God, something that would be fulfilled at Pentecost, when people of many tongues heard the gospel in their own languages. Acts 2. Thus, even in scattering, God was preparing the world for redemption. The story of the Tower of Babel stands as one of the most powerful accounts in the Bible about the dangers of pride, the limits of human ambition, and the sovereignty of God. It reminds us that while human beings are capable of great creativity and unity, our gifts are meant to serve a greater purpose, glorifying the Creator, not ourselves. The people of Babel sought to make a name for themselves, to build a tower that would reach the heavens. But their motivation was not to draw closer to God, it was to elevate themselves above Him. In doing so, they violated the very heart of God's command, to multiply, fill the earth, and live in dependence on Him. God's response was not one of wrathful destruction, as with the flood, but of merciful disruption. By confusing their language, He halted their rebellion and redirected their future. He scattered them not to punish aimlessly, but to guide them toward the fulfillment of His divine plan. From their dispersion, cultures were born. From confusion, a deeper purpose emerged. The story also leaves us with an enduring truth. When human beings unite in pride and self-glorification, it leads to disorder and brokenness. But when we unite in humility, reverence, and obedience to God, He blesses that unity and uses it to build His kingdom. In a world still marked by divisions, by language, culture, politics, and pride, the Tower of Babel is more than just ancient history. It is a mirror reflecting the struggle between human arrogance and divine authority. And it is a signpost pointing forward to the day when all people and all tongues will once again be united, not in rebellion, but in worship of the one true God. Ultimately, Babel teaches us that true greatness does not come from reaching upward on our own terms, but by bowing down in surrender to the one who reigns over heaven and earth. Message of God. My children, I created you in my image, not to glorify yourselves, but to walk in humility with me. I gave you unity so that you might serve one another, not build monuments to your pride. When your hearts turned from me and your hands reached upward in rebellion, I did not destroy you, but I scattered you so that in your brokenness you might one day seek me again. Let Babel be a lesson. Without me, your greatest achievements lead only to confusion. But with me, even what is scattered can be made whole. I desire not your towers, but your trust, not your ambition, but your obedience. Come to me not with prideful plans, but with surrendered hearts. For the day will come when every tongue and nation will worship as one, not in defiance, but in unity under my name. And in that day, what was once divided will be restored, and my glory will fill the earth as the waters cover the sea.